tonight, eh?
Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. All right, it's time for another exciting episode of as the scale train turns. It's a time for another exciting episode of A Modeler's Life. The life of modelers, the lives of modelers, and the trials and tribulations that they suffer as they go through this thing we call the human race. And tonight I have with me, Bruce and my other brother, Bruce. I haven't talked to you guys for a while.
This has been a while.
Because we saw you at Kansas City and Bruce was in Scotland.
That's right.
True.
Everybody, and Mike Ostertag was in Boston.
Boston, yeah.
And I interviewed him tonight. Him and Bob Frischella and Tom Jacobs the other night, all about his trip. And all he could tell me was that the shoulders of the roads in New England are very narrow or non-existent.
True.
So it seemed to be a big deal for him. He traveled for a week, and what he came away with was the shoulders of the roads were narrow.
Oh.
So, in other words, it was a very informative trip for him.
I guess.
Well, at least he wasn't stuck on a destroyer for 2 weeks.
Yeah, a week.
Oh, yeah, with the water being too high.
The waves were too high, and
oh, my, they could hear the head next door. Yeah. The stairs are too steep. The food sucked.
The doors were too small.
Yeah. What a whiny guy, eh?
Yeah, whiny guy. Okay, so let's go. So, Bruce, you've been to Scotland and back.
I have.
And you probably did some sort of railroady thing there.
We did all sorts of railroady things there. We rode the train from Gatwick to London to Windsor. Then we rode the train from Windsor down to East Grinstead to ride the Bluebell Railway. Then we rode the train up to Scotland. Then we rode some more trains in Scotland and rode the Strathspey Steam Railway at Aviemore. Then rode more trains in Scotland back to where we were staying at my relative's place.
Okay, so we should talk about that in greater length some night, but not tonight.
We can do that.
And because
it's not about us tonight.
No, because this actually probably won't be broadcast till the new year. This is in September. We're in September 2018, and we're ahead. And
we're time traveling.
We're time traveling. So that was Bruce Wilson, Bruce the Mail Boy, and
that's me.
Yeah, and also tonight we have superfan number one, the creator of the Kelly Questions, the president of every model railroad club within a 102-mile radius of Medford, Oregon. None other.
We expanded.
Yeah, while you were away.
Oh, wow.
None other than Bruce S. Kelly.
Hello.
Oh, also known as West Coast Bruce.
Known as West Coast Bruce. And the S, believe it or not, the S stands for shortchanged.
No, Steve.
So, anything exciting happen in your life, Mr. Kelly?
Oh, yeah. Just put a offer down on a house.
Oh, did you?
And we got accepted within 2 hours.
2 hours?
Yeah. And there were 3 other bidders.
And is it a big sprawling mansion on the Pacific Ocean?
No, but it's a smaller house than what we're in now, but it's a bigger yard. And I may be able to build a building bigger than Tom Jacobs.
Wow, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Now the important question, though, is that a big steep driveway on it?
Yeah.
No, it's flat. It's flat. it slopes away from the house, so we don't get any rain in the house, obviously, from the driveway. But it's
all right.
I'm not going to be sliding off it and hitting the tree or anything.
Well, this is good to know.
How much acreage is it?
It's less than an acre. I know that.
But it's a big lot.
It's a big lot, and it's the first time I've ever seen grass when you walk on it. It's like walking on carpet, real thick shag carpet, green.
Yeah. Oh,
no
man.
weeds.
You'll think that's great now.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot of work.
You're going to get a John Deere, a riding mower.
Oh, my little Cub Cadet. My little Cub Cadet will do it.
Okay.
Powered.
Okay. What is that? What is that got? Like an 18-inch deck on it?
No, it's 18-inch deck, but it moves itself, so I don't have to push it.
You should maybe think about goats or sheep or something.
Yeah.
Is it time to tell my lawn tractor story again, Bruce, or no?
Why not? There's never a bad time for that story.
So I have a John Deere lawn tractor. When I grew up, my dad we moved from Toronto to outside Toronto, so my dad could get a spread, and he got about 2 acres, and he had a big garden, and he bought a John Deere tractor, a small John Deere lawn and garden tractor, and so then I always rode around on that. So when I built my house, my present home, is a third of an acre, and I thought, well, I'm not. I tried pushing it a couple of times, but I thought enough of this. So I bought a John Deere lawn and garden tractor. So I've had it now almost 32 years. And about 3 or 4 years ago, the key had busted off in the ignition, and a couple other little things, and it was kind of old and gungy and run down. I thought, you know what? I'm going to go buy myself a new John Deere lawn and garden tractor. So I load the thing in the back of the pickup truck, the tractor in the back of the pickup truck, and drive to the local John Deere guy. And I'm looking around the showroom, and I found one I wanted for I don't guess they were like $8,000 or something for the one I wanted. And I said, I don't suppose by any chance that my 28-year-old lawn and garden tractor is worth anything. And the guy comes out and he says, I can't really give you much for that. I says, well, can you do anything? He says, so I couldn't give you any more than about $1,800 for that. And I'm like, $1,800? He says, yeah, it's got one of those Kawasaki engines in it that they built back then. And he says they're the best engines they ever built. So I said, well, do you have a new ignition switch and a couple of cans of paint? And it's still going. And she's sweet. It's got the original rubber.
Wow.
Still like sticker tires almost.
Yeah, it's like sticker tires. Exactly. All right, enough about us. Enough chit chat. Tonight we're gonna talk. This is really cool. I got excited about talking to this fella because Bruce Kelly, Mr. Kelly, when you and I were in Kansas City at the train show, I was looking at the Lego layouts.
Oh man, unbelievable!
I know, eh? And so then I had talked to Cale. Bruce, can somebody go get Cale out of the green room?
West Coast Bruce can do that.
Oh no, I can't do that. I always hit my head.
You hit your head on
that's
the
right.
thing. Yeah. All right. Hang on, I'll go get him. Mr. Cale.
Hello.
Cale, paging.
Yes.
Yes. Would you please come and join us out in the studio?
Sure.
Watch your head on the door coming out.
Yeah.
And watch the. Another one. He did sign the waiver first,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And watch that spot on the end of the couch there. We don't want you sitting near that.
We don't know what that is, but we highly recommend all of our guests sit at the other end of the couch.
Yes.
Is it supposed to be moving?
We don't know.
We're not sure. It's one of these ongoing experiments that we're greatly fascinated by, but afraid to ask any details.
My eyes are starting to water, and it's starting to burn my nose. But,
Yeah.
you know.
That's it. Well, that could be anything, but yeah.
We thought it started out as what we thought is just shrimp sauce stain, but it's gotten really nasty. So, Cale.
Yes.
How's the correct pronunciation of your last name?
You got it right. It's Cale.
That's your first name.
Yeah.
And
My last name.
Yeah.
Last name is Leapart.
Leapart. Okay, I wouldn't
Yeah.
have got that. That's like Blair Koistra. I never would have got that. Leapart. Because it looks like Lee. It's Liephart, right?
Yes. Lei.
Lei. Yeah, I said it wrong, but you'll get used. You'll get used to that. You'll get used to me saying stuff wrong. All right. So the reason I wanted to talk to you is because you and I had briefly talked about being on the podcast before, but then I went to Kansas City to the National Train Show, and I was looking at these Lego layouts because you are heavily involved in the Lego train hobby.
Mm-hmm. I was actually one of the guys out there out at Kansas City with the layouts.
Yeah, I kept coming up to you, but you kept telling me, "Don't bother me, kid." And you said you could.
Well, get
yeah.
busy.
So you have a magazine called the Brick, an online magazine called Brick. An online
It's a blog, an online blog called Brick Model Railroader.
.com.
Yes.
brickmodelrailroader.com, just like it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so how long have you guys had that, the blog?
Started that January of 2017, so little over a year and a half now we've been doing that.
Okay, it looks like more than a blog. It looks like it's like but that's basically what it is, just an ongoing blog.
Yeah, we do articles on Lego trains, spotlights on models that people have built, build techniques, products, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to have you on is because somehow, I don't know where I heard it, and I had looked at the Lego layouts before, but one of the ones in Kansas City was spectacular. They were both. There was two of them, wasn't there?
There's actually, hold on, let me count. There was our club layout. We actually did a joint layout with another club in Texas. That was the one that had the big roundhouse on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The roundhouse is actually from our club. And then Texas did the other half of that layout. And then there was another layout adjacent to us from Oklahoma. And then across from us, there was a layout from Kansas City, local Lego club. And then an Arkansas club next to them. And then a small display from two guys from up in Minneapolis.
Okay, and that was like it was like a sea of Lego.
Yeah.
I read somewhere you had about 3,000 square feet. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what they gave us for display, about 3,000 square feet. So we, shoved all our layouts into that space.
And so, where's your layout? Where's your club from?
Pennsylvania.
Okay, so a bunch of you. So do you guys? A bunch of you headed out. Like, how many of your club members headed out to Kansas City for that?
There was 4 of us there.
Okay.
Myself, Glenn Holland, and Casey Ross and her mother, who's also a part of the club.
Okay, and so how did you get involved with Lego Model Railroading?
Oh, well,
is that the correct way to say it? Is it Lego Model Railroading?
Yeah, Lego trains, Lego Model Railroading. I guess the stuff I do is more on like the model railroad end of the spectrum. But we just generally refer to it as like Lego trains.
Right.
Whenever. How did I get into this?
Yeah, like how did you get? I asked you first, I think.
How did I? That's a very good question.
Well, and it is so.
Let me try and think of a good answer.
Yeah. When do you figure you started seriously? Like, I'm assuming that you came back to this as an adult at some point.
Yeah, I've always had Lego as a kid.
Right.
So I was pretty big into Lego as a kid. I had, quite a few sets. My first real train set of my own was actually a Lego train set.
Right.
That I got for Christmas one year. So I've always been into Lego, and I never really stopped being involved with Lego. There was a point,
when you went to college and you were chasing, and there was girls and cars. We all know we've all been through it.
There was that point where I wasn't, I was just kind of like, I might get a set every now and then and just build it, but I wasn't really doing anything serious with it. And then I guess around 1999, late 99, I looked up a Lego on this new thing called the internet.
Right. It's a fad.
And I realized that there was a whole bunch of other people out there like me who loved Lego and loved building with Lego. So I got involved with the Lego online community from there.
How long ago was that?
That was around late 1999.
Okay.
When I first like started getting involved with the community, and like the adult side of the hobby here, I guess. And the Lego community itself at that time was still very small, and just starting out, because up until people started connecting with each other on the internet, like no one else knew that there's other people that liked this hobby.
Don't get me started on that subject. Holy moly. I think the hobby's growing like crazy because of all the social connection we can make. It's the one thing that was missing from model railroading, was the ability to connect with each other.
Yeah. I would say like the whole social, the whole social connection, the online community thing is what drove the Lego hobby to be where it's at today. Without that, we might not have, the community we have now.
Cool. Do you have something in your hand that you're kind of playing with there?
No.
Because we can hear it. And I don't want it to take away from your interview. So
I'll stop that.
Yeah, stop doing that. Don't force me to come down there and smack you. Okay, so that's Bruce and Bruce. This is exactly what I'm saying. Do you hear what he's saying? Like, because of the internet, the Lego community has grown to what it is today.
Oh yeah.
Well, totally. Like, you look at all the various, and like another one. Think of the guys who are in ON30. They're growing because there's lots of good social media group stuff. Everybody's growing because of this thing, and look how you've grown the podcast and met people from around the world.
Exactly.
It's great.
It is. It was what this hobby was missing. And as far as I'm concerned, Cale, and I'm interested in your opinion, I think the Bruces will agree with me, and if not, they'll be forced to off air anyways. I think personally that Lego trains are part of model railroading.
Very true.
I certainly hope. I think that, and I certainly hope, with some of the stuff that we're doing, kind of proves that. Because we do, like, the stuff I do and the stuff my club does, and the other clubs similar to us do. We try and take like that whole model railroading approach. Like, we'll, when we're building locomotives, we'll, reference scale plans that we find in model railroad magazines. We try and build stuff as close as we can to scale. I mean, it's still Lego.
Sure, it's Lego, but you're trying to make the Lego look as prototypical as you can.
Exactly.
Right.
And same things with the buildings. We're trying to like keep that, those model railroading ideas.
Right.
What we do, with creating an actual layout with a theme and where everything is kind of like tied together into one large model. It's not just a building here and a locomotive here, but everything kind of ties together into this much, much larger model that.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, it's like, to me, it was just, I couldn't get over what I was looking at for some reason or other. I mean, did the layout seem like, it just seemed spectacular to me? I mean, Bruce Kelly, you saw.
Yeah, and I'm used to it because the fact that I remember going to Philadelphia to the train show and Cincinnati, and it was just amazing to see what they were doing, and then to come to Kansas City after 15 or 10 years, and seeing what the change in the hobby based on electronics and all the other stuff that you guys are doing.
Yeah,
it's just
It's funny you mentioned Philly. You're talking about the NMRA show that was in Philly in 2006.
Yep.
that show was actually my club, PennLug, the Pennsylvania Lego Users Group. That was our first major show of any kind. So we only had a small portion of that big group display, but that was our first big show. And then, it was a lot of fun coming to Kansas City this year, and we've grown so much with our building since then. And
go ahead, Bruce.
I was going to say I like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was on Kansas City. The Kansas City Club's layout.
Yeah,
that was really good.
So PennLug, what does it stand for again? Pennsylvania
Lego Users Group.
And whereabouts would it be located roughly?
We're mainly in the southeastern Pennsylvania area. Probably at least half of our members, if not more, are from the Philadelphia area.
Okay.
I'm a little bit west of Philadelphia. I'm about an hour and a half west of Philadelphia. I'm from York, Pennsylvania.
I was going to say you're
not. Wait a minute. York, Pennsylvania is the center of the state. I have to disagree there. I'm from Coatesville, so I understand.
South Central PA.
Yes, that's better.
I thought you were in West. I thought you were from Westchester.
No. That's Westport.
I thought you lived in Arizona for 3 years.
Yeah, I lived in Arizona, Hawaii, and Connecticut.
And now you live in Oregon.
Now I live in Oregon.
And today
you're like a nomad running from the law.
And today you bought a new house.
Yep.
And with plenty of space to build an outbuilding like Tom Jacobs.
Yep.
And how many RVs can you get on your lot?
Probably none, because the space between the fence and the house is just too narrow.
What is it with you guys inviting everybody to your big fancy layouts, but you don't want anybody to park their RV? I don't get that at all. It doesn't seem very friendly.
Oh.
So Cale, you're in York, Pennsylvania, which by the way isn't very far from Robisonia, Pennsylvania.
That's right.
Robisonia, Pennsylvania.
I'm familiar with that area.
Okay, and do you own an RV?
I do not.
Yeah, well, if you can get one before 2020, we're having we're having basically Tom stock, which is our version of Woodstock. And we're having a big barbecue, and there'll be trash everywhere. Yeah, exactly. What?
Nothing.
All right. Okay. So, how many guys are in your club?
We probably have about 30 some members in our club. Now, not all of them are into the train layout side of things. Because we're just basically a general Lego club. We're a Lego club. We're not specifically a Lego train club, but we do have several of us who are into the trains and do have a very, if I may be so bold as to say, a very nice Lego train layout.
Yeah,
so
it's great.
So your members are, the club is more designed for the Lego part of the hobby.
Yeah.
So some people are into buildings.
Yeah.
And then some of you are into trains.
And then some people are into building like sci-fi, like spaceships and stuff, and right. or medieval castles, or so we have a pretty wide range of interest in the club, but there is a group of us in the club that are into the trains.
So do you go to other venues other than model railroad shows?
Oh yeah. We do. There's actually several Lego specific conventions throughout the U.S. now. 3 of them that we go to. There's actually one in Philadelphia, usually the end of April, called Philly Brickfest.
Mm-hmm.
We usually have, we always have a pretty big presence there because it's essentially our own backyard at that show. So we have a bunch of stuff there, and then some of us go out to. There's a really nice convention out in Chicago, out in Schaumburg, Illinois, called Brick World.
Okay.
that's probably one of the biggest Lego conventions in the U.S. So I usually go out for that every year, and a couple of people go along. And then there's another one that we regularly attend down out around Arlington, Virginia, outside of D.C., called Brickfest, and that one's also one of the bigger ones that in the U.S.
So would you say a bunch of you go to Arlington and have breakfast? I'm sorry. I apologize.
The convention is the convention. I'm sorry. The
convention
is
I apologize.
Yeah,
I'm the one that needs to apologize.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about well, I want to go back to you said when there are now a lot of conventions. Like, is this again? Do you think this is because of the internet? Like, the hobby's grown that much in the last 20 years that most of these conventions have blossomed in the last 20 years since?
Oh, definitely. Without being able to connect with other people over the internet, these conventions wouldn't be where they are. I mean, that's the whole reason. The very first Lego specific convention that I'm aware of, which was the original Brickfest, which was also down in Washington, D.C., started in 2000 simply because a bunch of Lego builders from across the U.S. who knew each other over the internet decided that, hey, we want to get together in person at some point,
right?
And and show off our models, and actually get to see everyone in person. So that's where that came from this,
right,
from people meeting online and deciding we want to meet up in person.
I'm telling you guys, this hobby's going to grow like crazy because we haven't even seen that. We haven't even. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't know, man. I think the fact we can connect together, it's just like what we're doing with Kale tonight, is so cool.
Okay, go on.
No, I had nothing. You go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm looking on the blog at Brickworld 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So at Brickworld, you've got everything to do with Lego, correct?
Yeah.
So you guys with the trains would be in a certain a separate section, based on what I'm seeing on the pictures.
Well, yeah. Well, usually at Brickworld they do a pretty good job of spreading. There's usually a couple train clubs that show up at that one. That's probably Brickworld is actually probably the best attended by the Lego train specific groups.
Okay.
As far as the Lego conventions.
Okay.
But, they do a pretty good job of spreading us out throughout the convention. So you've got a train layout, and then you've got rows of other stuff, and then a train layout, and
So explain to me about what the Demolition Derby is.
Oh, you're talking. This is an event. Well, actually, this was an event that we started doing last year at Brick Fair in DC.
Mm-hmm.
But then we decided to do it again this year at Brick World. It's a multi-part event called the Train Olympics. So it has several events: a train pool, a tug of war. We tried a racing at one, and then we have this demolition derby event, which is probably the most fun. And the idea behind it isn't to build a train that will survive the demolition derby. The idea is to build something that will explode in the most spectacular manner. So the winner is actually decided on by vote of who puts on the biggest show, I guess. So,
and of course, right now, visions of Gomez Adams are popping into my head.
Yes.
That is exactly what happens. We have two trains on the same track facing off against each other and run them into each other, and it's pretty fun.
So what happens is the one that has the most spectacular explosion of pieces gets all the pieces at the end.
Well, usually we have a trophy.
Yeah.
actually built out of Lego, an actual Lego trophy that we built. So the winner gets the trophy, and but yeah, and of course the honor of winning, claiming to be the champion of the Demolition Derby. I won that this year at Brick World.
Excellent.
Yes, with the neighborhood trolley, right? That's
yeah. Which it's a fairly old model, actually. It's of course based off the neighborhood trolley from Mr. Rogers.
Mhm.
But it explodes pretty well when it crashes.
That's cool. That's cool. So I'm looking at the picture on the blog right now, and it's pretty impressive. Even the trophy it looks like a big, large Lego brick with a plaque on it. It's just great.
So,
And what
I
month?
would say even though the trolley took quite a bit of hits, every time I put it back together and it came back for more. So,
Which month is that in, Bruce? What yours?
June 25th, 2018. It's the Brick World 2018 event report.
All right.
And then once you get there, there's also a picture of a Union Pacific diesel set
That's pretty sweet.
Oh,
that is really
that's E9 diesel set. That was built by a builder in Lincoln, Nebraska, Nathan Flood. Yeah, that was a really that Union Pacific diesel set was really, really awesome.
Okay, now here's the question I have to ask, because I'm used to when I first saw Legos and I saw a Lego train, it was basically, you could tell it was Legos because of the square bricks and everything else. But now you've got curves and all sorts of other
Pieces.
like design pieces that are not looking like the typical Lego brick. Is that something that Lego is making, or you guys fabricating them?
Yeah. Well, most of probably 99% of what you see there in most of the photos you probably see is genuine Lego. Lego has expanded their range of pieces enormously, probably over the last 20 years. We can do stuff with the parts today that we couldn't have even imagined doing at one point.
They do the side frames and all of that now for you, or is that special run by companies you deal with?
Well, the side frames on the freight cars.
Well, freight cars are the locomotives there.
The local
The side rods,
Or like
the
Union
the truck side frames.
Yeah, like other Union.
Oh, on that. The truck side frames on that diesel set. Those are all just made up of individual Lego pieces.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
That's spectacular.
Yeah.
How
Now
long? Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we do use a couple non-Lego elements, like particularly for guys like me. I'm really into building the steam engines, and Lego's still kind of limited in a lot of like the parts we need for steam engines, particularly with the wheels, the drivers. Lego only has really one size driver available for building steam engines. So there is one third-party company, Big Ben Bricks, that started molding drivers, started producing their own Lego-compatible drivers several years ago. He's got 3 different sizes of drivers, and now we're getting into like the 3D printing. We're actually like designing our own drivers to work with Lego and having them 3D printed, so we can get much, much closer in size to what we need for a steam engine. And then also with the side rods. We can do side rods with, genuine Lego pieces, but the range of pieces is kind of limited, and it makes for kind of a clunky system, and it's really hard to do like working valve gear. So in the last 2 or 3 years, we've started making our own pieces for the side rods and the valve gear, and having actually like 3D printing that.
Wow.
And it's all designed to work with the standard Lego parts, but of course it expands on what we do. But even with those, like with the steam locomotives that I build and some of the other guys build, 95% of that is still stock Lego.
All right.
We very rarely use non-Lego parts. As general rule, like in the Lego hobby, we're kind of most are kind of purist in that, like, we want to use genuine Lego parts and not try and modify anything or use it, like an aftermarket part if we can help it.
It sounds like that organization with 4 letters that
The NMRA.
scratch build. Would this count as scratch building in the AP program?
Well, yeah. Are they exempt parts or not? I don't know.
Yeah. Woo.
Now, obviously, well, maybe not. I would assume that these models are all battery-powered radio control.
Yeah, well, Lego's had a couple different train systems over the years. Lego actually started producing train-specific sets in the 60s. First, they were just push-along. Later on, they went to battery, and then a 12-volt system that got power through a 2 center rails.
All right.
That was in the 70s and 80s. And then in the 90s, they came out with their 9-volt system, which picked up power from the 2 main rails, just like a normal model train would. And then about 2005, they discontinued the 9-volt system and they went to a battery-powered system. And then now they've come out with a new system, in 2005 they switched to the power function system, which was a battery powered system, and it also used a infrared remote control for controlling the trains remotely. Just this year they've now switched to what they call the powered up system, which is still using battery powered motor, but it's using a Bluetooth controller, so you can actually control the trains now through an app on your phone or from a Bluetooth-enabled controller.
Wow.
But during all that time, the track gauge has remained the same. It's Lego's own track gauge that they came up with. It's I think a little bit bigger than O scale, but it doesn't really correspond to any traditional model railroad scale gauge.
Right.
So we call it L gauge.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you for a minute, Cale.
Okay.
I will get back to where you are, but I was scrolling through those pictures that Bruce said to, and then I got to this Pepsi machine this guy built.
Oh, I was going to tell you. Yeah. Did you see that?
God.
Yeah. That was. Yeah.
Like, that's spectacular. And is that mostly, and that, again, like, I appreciate it. Like, when you said, the purists or what, you use 95% Lego parts, like, that makes complete sense to me, because otherwise then why would you be doing Lego if you weren't you weren't trying to stay true to what it is originally.
Yeah.
So anyways, this Pepsi machine is spectacular.
It is.
That was one of my favorite models from Brick World this year, because one of my other interests is in like old gas station stuff and old vending, old gas station stuff and like vending machines and that kind of nostalgic stuff. So I really love that, and I want to do a Coke machine like that.
There you go. Well, you know what? The thing I was looking at, I was talking to one of our regulars on the show, Tony Cook, who's the editor of Model Railroad News and the creator of HO Collector Quarterly. I had suggested he made it eighthly, but he's looking into that. We were talking, and we were saying, what was I talking? Oh yeah, those box cars. Like on the front of your page is a box car. Like, do you buy the kit to make a box car, or do you buy plans to make a box car? Like, I'm drooling. I'm almost going to build a box car just for the heck of it.
Well, the box cars you see on there, actually, we actually offer instructions for those through Brick Model Railroader.
Okay.
That's actually you're talking about. You're talking about there's a tan boxcar and like a dark red boxcar on the front page. Yeah, that's a Pullman PS1 boxcar that I actually designed, and I made instructions for that, and we actually sell that through our website to help support Brick Model Railroader.
Okay, so so you buy the plans, and then you go from there. Yeah,
so we offer what we call a premium instruction kit. So you get a printed instruction book, a full color printed book. It includes, all the steps to assemble the boxcar. You get a parts list with it, so you know what parts you need to get. We also include a history article on the car. Like, for instance, this is a PS1 boxcar, so we have a short history of the PS1 boxcar, and we try and throw some historical photos in there, so you have some context, like the real model that this is modeled after.
And those are in the shop, and what are they called? They're somewhere on this website, this brickmodelrailroader.com.
Yeah, it's
in the shop.
Yeah, in shop. And then one of the things we've started doing with them is we do include a couple parts with them. The main part we include is we have wheel sets that we make that use ball bearings.
Okay.
That roll much, much nicer than the standard Lego wheel set, which helps a lot with these cars because these cars tend to be kind of heavy. So we've actually developed a ball bearing. We figured out how to make a wheel set using ball bearings, and we include that with the kit. That way, mainly because that's like a non-standard part. It's not an official. It's not technically an official Lego part. It's non-standard, so we include that. So all you really need to get with the kit is the genuine Lego parts, which make up the majority of the car.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. So you include. So if a guy like me decides, okay, before we go on, you said these are premium.
Premium instruction kit.
Yeah. Do you have? Do you happen to have instruction kits for guys that maybe are kind of a little overweight in their 60s and aren't really the sharpest knives in the drawer, and they might be Canadian, and they might.
We haven't made any Canadian models yet.
Okay.
We will.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, but instructions on it. That's what I need. The instructions for the dumb guys. So it's $40 for. I think I saw that, and it's $40, and in there you get these ball bearings to make it basically.
Yeah.
Basically, if I was to buy the instructions, all I would need to do is go to my local Lego place and buy just basic Lego parts.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Or you can buy them online. There's actually a website. There's a website online that called Bricklink.
Bricklink. Right.
It's
cool. This is cool.
the best way I can describe Bricklink is basically an online flea market for Lego. It is a website where people from around the world can go and set up an online store and sell individual Lego pieces. And what a lot of sellers on Bricklink will do is they'll buy multiple copies of a certain kit, and they'll break that kit down into individual piece lots. So you might only get a certain piece in quantity of 1 or 2 in a kit, but they'll buy 30 of that kit, so they have a much greater quantity of that. So for guys like me who are building our own models and need 30 of this and 20 of that, we can get that on Bricklink without having to buy 30 of this kit and 20 of that kit. We can just buy the individual parts out of that kit that guys have split up.
Right, yeah. And so have you ever been any kind of a regular model railroader?
Actually, I have a little bit. When I was younger, maybe around 10 or 12, right. I did have a small little N-scale railroad.
Okay.
It wasn't very big. It was probably 3 foot by 6 foot.
Well, and you guys were obviously excited to be at the NMRA National
Oh, yeah.
Like you guys, how am I going to phrase this so that it makes any sense to anybody else but me? But you guys must be obviously aware of the NMRA, the National Train Show, and going to train shows. You guys are interested in model railroading. You've just taken you've just taken this avenue.
Oh yeah, I've been interested in model railroading since I was a kid. I remember getting like issues of Model Railroader when I was a kid and reading them and just like staring at them in awe, like the wonderful, awesome layouts that were in them, and dreaming of doing that myself someday. Somewhere along the line, I detoured into the Lego train.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but I still follow model railroading, the model railroad hobby closely. I go to various train shows, even when I'm not displaying with my club. I love going to train shows, and I eventually, hopefully, one of my goals someday is to actually build an HO scale model railroad. So that's an eventual bucket list goal. But for right now, I'm pretty much into the Lego trains. But I still do follow the model railroad hobby closely, and
yeah, you're a Lego guy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought it was cool. I mean, seeing some of those locomotives, to me, was just it was neat. Like, didn't you think, Bruce?
Oh yeah, I'm impressed. In fact, I'm looking right now at the PS1 and the caboose.
Yeah.
When something's out of stock, how long does it get back into stock?
It depends. Like right now, our PS1 boxcar is out of stock.
Yeah,
so
I figured that one out real quick.
I hope to have that back in stock in November. I'm kind of waiting on ordering more instruction books from the printer. So I'm working on our next kit, which is a gondola.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to wait. I'm kind of waiting to order, until I have that ready to order those books, until I order another batch of the PS1 books. But we've been trying to keep things fair, in stock as well as we can regularly.
Well,
So-
I can think of two guys that want the PS1 kit.
I can make three.
Three guys.
I'm impressed.
Oh, boy.
What?
And you know what I'm thinking here? We'll have to get Brillinger to print us up some proper size decals. For
Oh,
AML.
yeah.
No. He's got decals too.
I know, but not AML decals.
Oh, AML decals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
have you ever-
right.
yeah.
I can make AML decals for the boxcar.
Well, there you go.
Well, there we go.
Yeah,
Get ready for a
can
run of
have
about
those made.
300 then.
the next picnic, you'll be handing out these.
This is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm just blown away by this
So-
stuff.
Based on what I'm seeing there, $35 for the instructions to build one of these PS1 box cars. What is the material? What's the cost when you finally get finished this putting it together? Typically,
it can vary a little bit. Some parts are a little more expensive than others just because they're a little more rare.
mm-hmm.
For instance, that dark red boxcar that you're probably looking at is probably a little bit more expensive because that's a little bit rarer color. But for the boxcar, total parts cost, you can probably get away with maybe about $70-$80 if you shop around a bit.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So, what page is that on? I'm missing that. I was looking.
It's under shop.
Yeah,
And then hit premium instructions.
Yeah, and then I got I was looking at it, and then I got
Pullman Standard PS1 40-foot boxcar.
I know, but is it on page 1 or page 2? I'm scrolling and talking, and I can't do more than one thing. Maybe it's page 4. I saw it. Now I got away
I
from
put the link. I put the link in the side chat for you.
Pullman
Page
Standard
4.
PS1 40-foot boxcar, $35.
Yeah.
Do you have any of those in stock?
No, it says out of stock.
Oh man,
Not right
come
now.
on, Kale, you're killing me here, buddy.
Killing
I,
it.
How many of those have you sold? Those premium instruction kits for the boxcar? You think?
The boxcar. Let me think here. I think we're up to about 170 so far. That was the first kit we came out with. That was a little over a year ago that we introduced that. So yeah, I think we're up about 170.
Wow.
Total now. Over the past year.
Okay, go ahead, Bruce. You got better.
I was going to ask a question about in building it. Say, like, I'm looking at the Reading boxcar, for example, because that's my favorite railroad. Does that mean I got to go get yellow and green Lego parts? Or
yes.
Okay, so nobody weathers or paints their Lego cars.
Generally, no. We actually have some guys have actually tried to do weathering with the brick, like using different colored brick to create weathering effects. Mm-hmm. I generally don't care for that look, but they've had some moderate success here and there. But as far as like paint, weathering with like traditional model railroading techniques, like paint and chalks and whatever, no. We generally shy away from that.
Yeah, you shy away from it because everything that you want on the layout you want it to be a original Lego color. Yeah.
Okay. Now I have, for my own stuff, I have painted a few parts. I did a model last year of the New Jersey Central Blue Comet. It's a blue passenger train that ran on the New Jersey Central through the 1930s, and that has blue and dark blue colors in it. Well, the dark blue colors are the parts selection in Lego in dark blue is kind of limited. So for doing stuff like the trucks and a couple other small details, I actually did paint some of those parts. I found a paint that matched very well to actual Lego dark blue. So, when they're painted, you can't really tell. And one of the things I do when I paint parts is I paint the entire part. I don't assemble something and then paint it as a whole. I will paint each individual part, basically doing a color change of that part. So like a gray part now becomes a dark blue part when I paint it. Even though you might not see all the sides of that part, for me, it's kind of like, if I ever want to use that part again, now I have this dark blue part I can use in something instead of, this like half painted part. A lot of builders don't like to do that, and I don't like to do that if I have the option of not doing that. Like if I can get the part actually in the color that I want, the real Lego part, I will go for that. Mm-hmm. But if I didn't paint stuff, I couldn't have done that Blue Comet model, and I really wanted to do that train. So I kind of like, put my feelings of purity aside for that one and said, I want to build this, and the only way I can do it is to paint a couple parts. And if I can't build the stuff I want to build in this hobby, then, why even be in it? So, and like, as far as like painting, like I said, I don't paint anything that I can get in a genuine Lego color.
Yeah. So painting is a last resort.
Yeah. It's a bit of a last resort. And also I think, one of the things that makes it acceptable is when you do it, you do the best job you can of it. I've seen guys. I've seen painted parts that look terrible, and I've seen painted stuff that you couldn't tell was painted. And I want to make sure my stuff is like you can't tell that it's painted.
Right, exactly. Some people are better at it than others. It's just like any hobby, and
yeah.
And okay, let me ask you this question, and I want an honest answer. This is a tough question. This is a hard-hitting journalistic question. And I want you to give me an absolute honest answer if you can, unless, of course, you're one of these people, then you probably wouldn't be able to. Are there snobs in Lego trains? Like, the guys that are really good at it. Some of those guys kind of turn their nose down at people that aren't as good at it, or is it a much friendlier community?
Well, there's some there's some personalities out there in the Lego community. Generally, as a whole, the Lego community is pretty friendly and
yeah. So it's like
we all get along pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, you're always in any hobby, you're going to have those people that kind of that are as you said, a little more snobbish. May look down on others, but
it sounds like model railroading, where most of the people, 95% of the people are great people, and you just have those few people that spoil it for the rest of them.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the cover issue of the first issue of Railbricks magazine, and it's called A Slice of Apple. And there's those buildings that this guy has on his layout. Are they also Lego, or is that a combination of custom built buildings?
No, that is all Lego.
Holy crap!
Yeah. Railbricks magazine was an online Lego magazine dedicated to Lego trains. It's now no longer being produced. The guy that was behind it, Jeremy Spurgeon, he kind of got out of the hobby. So after he got out of the hobby, it just kind of ground to a halt. But Railbricks is actually kind of why I started Brick Model Railroader, to kind of like fill in that space a little bit. But yeah, everything you see on that front cover, that's all Lego. That's made by a builder, Jonathan Lopes.
I'm looking at it. I've gone over to on the website. I've gone to the part where it said people, and I scrolled down there, and I got to the scenic. The Conway Scenic Railroad one. Oh my God, like that is spectacular. It's just like,
yeah, that was one of my favorite recent train builds that I've seen someone build.
Yeah.
He did a wonderful job with that model.
It looks like a fun hobby, because there's a fair amount of, like, it's not just, it looks like a lot of fun, to be honest with you. I'm dying to build one of those box cars now. I can actually see me wanting to build stuff just for the sake of building it.
Yeah, I'm looking at that State of Maine box car. That's pretty slick looking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. A question for you. Obviously, when you take your layouts to shows, they're done in sections. Are they set size like 2 feet by 4 feet, or is there some sort of standard, like an N-track standard or something like that, to so anybody can take their Lego modules to the show and run with anybody else's, or are you working on that?
We're actually working on that. I'll get to that. But up until this point, most clubs have basically just created their own individual, standards for how they put their layouts together. Usually it's based on like the size of Lego has base plates that they sell that you can build off of, and usually it's based off the size of a base plate. Like a standard base plate would be like 32 studs by 32 studs.
Right.
A stud is typically the bump is the bump on the top of the Lego brick. That's what we call a stud.
So the stud, like, you got to give me a hint here. Both these guys will tell you are not dealing with the sharpest knife in the drawer.
You imagine a standard Lego brick, right? On the top, there's bumps.
Yes.
And those bumps are what connect the Lego brick to the one on top that you put on top of it.
Right.
Those bumps, we call them studs.
Okay.
All right. So, and then something will be so many studs by so many studs.
Yeah. So, like a 2x4 brick is 2 studs wide by 4 studs long.
Okay.
All right.
And it seems like can you get big platforms, like big bricks and big platforms?
Yeah. Yeah. Lego sells base plates, which are basically big building platforms. They come in various sizes, but the most standard size is 32 studs by 32 studs, or about 10 inches by 10 inches. And usually that's what we base a lot of our building off of. Our buildings are built on top of that because it's a base plate. It's a really good base to start off of. So so when most clubs up to this point have kind of like developed their own standards kind of around that base plate size. Like our club, we have our own tables that we built that are sized according to standard base plate sizes. But you asked about like a standard, and at Kansas City this year, several of us from the clubs participating started talking about like an actual modular standard, very similar to like the Fremo standard.
Right.
In model railroading, kind of like that, but for Lego, so that so someone who isn't necessarily part of a club can build a section, a modular layout section, take it to a show, and meet up with other Lego builders who've built similar modules, and they can all link together and they can create a layout, even if they're not part of a club. So we've actually, since Kansas City, a bunch of us have been hashing out details on Facebook, on a Facebook group for a Lego like Fremo standard, so that in the future we can have collaborative layouts between individual builders at shows.
Now the base plates, would you glue down onto a tabletop or screw them down, or? I was individual plates. I see this stuff sliding all over the place, which would, in my mind, be a generally bad thing.
Typically no. We don't fasten anything to the tables. We've gotten pretty good at like being able to pack stuff and so usually stuff breaks apart into smaller sections, and then we box it up, and everything comes off the table. So, when you're transporting the table, you're basically just transporting an empty table, and then everything else that goes on top of that table is in a box.
So every individual base plate gets packed separately with whatever's stuck on it for transportation.
Yeah. Usually stuff will break down into a base plate size module, or maybe a multiple base plate size module for some of the bigger stuff. Now, some guys have actually started permanently attaching, like screwing base plates down to tables so they can basically move a modular section, table and all. But yeah.
Yeah, so basically, when you took your stuff, okay, so the layout I was looking at in Kansas City, there was one with a yellow locomotive. I don't know which one that was, but the layout I was looking at, I mean, how long did it take you to build the layout?
Our club layout, we probably have, the oldest stuff in the layout is probably 10 years old. So we've got about 10 years cumulative in building stuff for that layout. We add stuff every year. We might, take apart some older stuff and, build something new. But, right. There's a good 10 years worth of building in our layout and all the various models that go into it.
And you throw it in the back of an SUV or a trailer? Or?
Our club, Penlug, we're fortunate enough that we actually have a trailer that we can haul all our tables and all our stuff in.
Okay. And is there like a national association or international Lego association?
There's no national Lego association. There's clubs all around the world.
Right.
And we actually, probably the closest to a national organization for clubs is actually through Lego, actually through the Lego company, the Lego Ambassador Network.
Right. I'm just looking here. I scrolled farther down on that page, guys, to the here
Yeah.
you got the Spirit of the Union Pacific.
Mm.
Somebody built that. Like, man, oh
Wow.
man.
So, Cal, what is the ILTCO?
Oh, the ILTCO ILTC, the International Lego Train Club Organization. That was kind of it was mostly North American organization that was started. I think maybe around 2002 or 2003. And for a while it was I think kind of supposed to be like an NMRA for Lego trains.
Mm-hmm.
It eventually kind of outlived itself, or it didn't really go anywhere. But that was for a while. There was a group of people trying to create like a national organization for Lego trains.
Wow.
But as of right now, we don't really have a national or like an NMRA for Lego trains, I should say.
Right.
That's something that a lot of us in the community have talked about, though. Whether or not it's needed, what its purpose would be and stuff. But
yeah, sounds like you have plenty of like who puts these individual shows on? Like which you said the one in Chicago. What's it called? Brick
World.
And who would put that on? Just some individuals or a local club or?
Yeah, most of these conventions that have popped up have been started by individuals in the hobby who have just said, we want to do a Lego show in our area.
Right.
Like Brick World in Chicago was originally started by two guys, Brian Bonahum and Adam Reed Tucker. They had been to some other Lego conventions and decided like we wanted to do our own here in the Chicago area, so they started Brick World. That's like that's really kind of the way most of the conventions have started. Just a couple guys have decided they want to do a Lego convention, and they put the word out, hey, we're doing this. And
yeah, I don't know if you're aware of it, but in model railroading there's something called RPM meets that have become very, very popular in the last 15 to 20 years. Probably in the last 10 years they've become really, really popular, and they're just individuals that put these shows on, and they're not part of any national organization or anything. And it seems
I'm familiar with the RPM meets. I've considered actually like trying to take some of my Lego models to one of the RPM meets. I just haven't had the chance to actually get to one yet.
I'd like you to do that. I'd be interested to see in the response you got, because
really.
Hopefully it would generally be favorable. All right,
especially that guy with the E9. If he was to take that to a show just to see what the reaction would be amazing.
Even if you look at the Spirit of the Union Pacific model or that Conway Scenic Railway, all this stuff is like it's spectacular. Okay, so in the time we have left, I want to talk to you about building these steam locomotives that you build. So where would be the best place to look on the brickmodelrailroader.com website to see what you've done?
All of my photos of stuff that I do is actually on my Flickr account.
Oh my goodness gracious. I only have moderate success with Flickr, but okay. None of your you don't report about yourself at all on Brick Model Railroader?
Oh, I do actually. I do. I usually do an article whenever I like finish a locomotive model.
All right. So steer me towards one of your articles.
If you're all right, so on Brick Model Railroader.
Yes.
I can send you the link. Or
because the website's laid out so well, you could just tell me go here and go here and.
All right, so go to categories.
Categories.
And then click on model. You'll see the drop down menu. Click on models.
Models. I've clicked there.
All right. You can scroll down.
Scroll down. I'm scrolling. Past the,
Might have to scroll.
Past the buses are pretty cool.
past the buses. And then, oh man, look at this locomotive, the Madam Queen. Holy mackerel.
So,
Wow.
it's been a little while since I think I've written about any of my own stuff. So you'll probably have to go.
All right, well, we'll keep scrolling.
You want to go, if you go to the second page, and I think about 2/3 of the way down, you'll come to my Blue Comet model.
Hey, somebody did Thomas
Mhm.
and the
Lionel-
gang.
The army,
Lionel, what,
the army train is spectacular.
That is cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another really great model.
Lionel, was Lego represented at Springfield?
They were.
Yes.
Oh.
There were some Lego layouts there.
Good.
Yeah,
Say that fast.
the
Mark, that
local
Lego
club
layout.
up there, the New England Lego Users Group, usually sets up their layout at Springfield every year there, and I went up this past year. This is actually this is my first year that I was at Springfield, so I went up and actually displayed with them a little bit
Good.
and
Are you,
experienced the show. And
are you going to go next year?
yeah, I'm hooked now.
All right.
that show is amazing.
It is. It is. See, well, now there's
Yep.
an excellent point. He's a Lego model railroader, but he thinks the Springfield show is amazing. He's a model railroader. I don't
That's
I
right.
don't
Yeah,
care what
I'm-
anybody says.
No, yeah.
I'm a model railroader. I'm a
he's-
train fan.
Yeah, he's modeling railroads with Lego. He's a model railroader.
Exactly. Okay, so this Blue Comet thing, it's like,
Hmm.
how long did it take you to build this baby?
Well, from the time I started planning on doing it, I probably a good 2 years. From when I
Wow.
decided I want to do it. I just, but a lot of that time was just spent on like researching the model, researching the train, finding all the information I could on it, and then I actually started with the passenger cars first because I knew there was going to be a lot of parts in them that I didn't have on hand. So I actually modeled them in CAD first. There's a couple Lego CAD programs out there. So I modeled them in CAD first, so I basically could create a shopping list of the parts I needed for cars. And in the meantime, while I was getting the parts for the cars and building them, I started on the locomotive. As far as actual building time, there's probably about 6 months maybe of building time in that. Off and on in evenings and on weekends whenever I had time.
Okay.
So to start the process, you obviously start with some sort of scale drawings of the passenger cars, and then adapted that to whatever scale your Lego is, and then work from there.
Yeah.
And developed it all.
Yeah, if I can find scale drawings of a model that I want to do, they're a big help because, obviously they give me like exact dimensions of what the real car should be.
Yeah.
But sometimes they don't have exact scale drawings, and I just have to basically go off as many photos as I can find. If I'm fortunate enough, being able to see the actual locomotive or car at a museum, and get a lot of pictures there. But if not, just whatever information I can find and just start going from that.
And those cars you're saying are pretty much 99% stock Lego parts. Or
Yes.
that range.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
And I have a question. Don't tell me what it is. So are all these blue parts where they had to be painted, or just a couple of these blue parts?
Only a couple. The lighter blue parts, nothing is painted. The only parts that are painted, there's parts on the side frames of the trucks on the passenger cars that I had to paint because they just weren't available
Right.
in stock Lego. And then the drivers on the locomotive are actually 3D printed drivers because no one makes a driver that size for that, an 80-inch driver that, no one makes a Lego compatible driver that represents an 80-inch driver. So those are actually 3D printed.
Which is only gonna,
And then I had to paint those dark blue and do the gold pinstriping. And then the side rods and the valve gear on the locomotive, those are 3D printed parts.
All right.
Um,
That's amazing. How about the domes? Are those special parts or Lego parts?
Nope, they are standard Lego parts. That's
Really?
It's actually a couple Lego like radar dish parts
All right.
stacked on top of each other to create the domes.
So part of the
And
fun.
then-
This is amazing. Like,
and then
you're looking what's there to figure out how
Yeah.
you can adapt.
And then I used a actual striping tape, like a pinstripe tape, to do the striping on the tender and around the cab and on the
Wow.
domes and everything.
So there's no rules, but the unwritten rule is to try to keep it 100% Lego.
Yeah, and you know, it's a matter of pride, you know, being able
Absolutely.
to say, you know, you've done this, you know, you've basically it's a challenge. It's a you know, and it's part of the fun.
Well, sure, exactly. I understand all that, and it was kind of cool, guys, to hear him say that the first thing he did was research and
Yeah.
and plans and all that.
Same thing I would do if I'm building a model.
Exactly, or any model railroad.
Any model. Yeah.
So
And
okay,
I love research.
there you go.
I-
You know the here's the way I feel about research. Here's the way I felt about at school. Don't take notes, don't pay attention, and then you don't have to worry about the tests.
There you go.
So therefore, research was pretty far down the list of things I like to do. But I do like talking to you. So a couple of things. This next particular thing I'm doing for Michael Peterson, who is one of the owners of Iowa Scaled Engineering, who are the guys that create a unit called the Proto Throttle that Scott Thornton thought he'd never sell one of. Do you?
I actually got to play with that. The soundtracks booth at NMRA had one of those proto throttles,
Yes.
and I actually got to play with that because a couple of us from the Lego clubs actually went over there at one point and were talking to them about, you know, how we could put like DCC sound cards in our locomotives.
Jeez.
And I actually got to play with that throttle, and that's really cool. That thing is really cool.
There you go. See, okay. Well, the reason I'm doing this for Michael Peterson is because he mentioned this when we were talking. I was talking to him and Scott. I love you, Scott. Do you know what CAD stands for?
I'm sure you're going to tell me.
Yeah, it stands for Computer Aided Design.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, it's like rip tracks. Apparently, rip tracks means repair in place.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay, briefly, because we're running out of time. How in the world, where do you start to build this locomotive? Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but to the three of us, the newbies here, the laymen in this thing, looking at this Blue Comet locomotive looks like, where in the world would you even start?
I start at the wheels.
Yeah?
Now, one of the hardest things, particularly about building a Lego steam engine, is getting it to run and run well, because you've got a lot of moving parts in there that have to mesh and not interfere with each other. So I usually start with, when I start building, I will start with a running gear first. You know, I will lay out the frame, just a basic frame, get the wheels spaced correctly to where I want them. You know, I will build a basic pair of cylinders and, you know, start getting all the rods and stuff worked out, and all the pilot truck and the trailing truck. And before I start building anything else with a locomotive, I will play with that, and I will get that all right. And once I know that will all work properly, then from there, I will start building out the boiler, the cab, you know, and the tender. And then I will start, once I have everything kind of fleshed out, you know, the basic form, then I will start going back in and I'll start adding in the details wherever I can. So in that whole process there's a lot of like building and tearing apart and rebuilding and tearing that apart and rebuilding and till you kind of get to that point where you're happy with it and you feel like you're finished with it. But it's very much, a lot of it is very much trial and error. You kind of know the shape you want to make, and you might have a fairly good idea of the pieces you want, but it's like, how can you put those pieces together to get that shape and achieve what you want. It's almost like putting together a giant puzzle.
Oh yeah.
And you have and so
and you got to you must have buckets and buckets of Lego pieces, do you?
I have a pretty good collection of pieces to draw from. Usually when I set out to build a locomotive, I have probably 90% of the parts I will use in that locomotive on hand in my collection.
And how do
there might be some parts I need to buy, but I particularly for like the locomotives, I try and build them with whatever I have on hand, because
and do you and how do you keep them organized?
Organization of parts is it's a big debate in the Lego community. Everyone has their own system of organizing their parts, and I always say there's no wrong way to organize your collection. It's basically whatever makes sense to you.
Right.
Most of my stuff, I have a big enough collection that most of my stuff is separated by color and by part type. So I have plastic bins with drawers and stuff that for smaller parts, and bigger bins for bigger parts. But everyone has their own like individual system that makes sense to them, and usually to no one else.
Yeah. And so there's no, people just kind of wing it. Like, how big do you think the community? How big do you think the community is in North America?
Well, I think the last time I read any figures, there was about 80 to 90 some individual clubs in North America.
Wow.
Now, not all of those clubs are, some of those clubs might be like 2, 3, 4 people.
Sure.
But and then there might be some clubs that are, like our size, 30 people, and then there's some clubs that are upwards of 50 or 100 people.
And
so there's clubs of all different sizes. But
sure. And there's lots of people that don't belong to a club.
And there's lots of people that don't belong to a club. To give you another number, for the convention in Chicago, Brickworld, this year they passed 1,000 registered attendees. That's
wow.
Actual, yeah. And that's not including the public that comes through on Saturday and Sunday. That's just the builders like me who attend Wednesday through Sunday.
So it's a Wednesday through Sunday, and how much was do you know roughly how much the convention was to register?
Brickworld, I believe this year was $80.
Okay.
To register for the entire weekend. Now, you do get quite a bit out of that. There's
sure. No, I'm not asking as in, oh my God, that's expensive. I'm just interested as in comparison to other, and that sounds pretty standard for 4 or 5 day conventions, and 1,000 people. Wow, that's that's a pretty spectacular number. And what about, say, the one you said you go to one in Arlington?
Yeah, Brick Fair. That's Brick Fair, Virginia. Yeah, Brick Fair, Virginia.
And how many registrants do you think they would get?
This was the first year they broke 1,000 as well.
Holy mackerel!
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So yeah, Brickworld and Brick Fair are 2 of the biggest in North America.
So let me
actually, they probably are the 2 biggest in North America.
So if you guys are getting more than 1,000 registrants at 2 separate conventions. This hobby's pretty big.
Mm.
Yeah, it's grown phenomenally in the last 20 years.
And do you know why it's grown phenomenally in the last 20 years? Because of the internet.
Mm.
I'm telling you guys, this model railroading is different in 20 years. I'm dying to see what this is like, the hobby's like in 20 years. Everybody is so connected now. I see this picture.
I've met people around the world. I am friends with people who I have never actually met in person.
Right.
But I'm friends with them because of the internet and connecting to them over the internet over this hobby.
Well, sure, exactly. It's the same. I've never met Bruce Wilson, and I'm friends with him. So I see in one of your pictures on your Facebook page here, there's a picture of the Brick Model Railroader Wide Vision Caboose Special, and it has NMRA on it, and then you got some certificates of authenticity. What's that word? Somebody say
authenticity.
Authenticity. Yeah.
What is that?
So this is a premium instruction kit that we developed at Brick Model Railroader for this year's convention, because this convention was the first convention in several years where this many Lego clubs had showed up together to put on a Lego train display. And this is the first convention that BMR as an entity, the first NMRA convention that BMR as an entity was at. So to kind of commemorate that, we developed this premium instruction kit based off the Wide Vision Caboose in Missouri Pacific colors. And we offered it to all the Lego fans who were attending as a special edition kind of commemorative memento of the event.
And what does the certificate of authenticity mean exactly?
Well, we basically just threw that in. We wanted to throw everything in there we could to kind of make this a little extra special. So each one of the kits was numbered. We produced a total of 35. So each one of them was numbered, and each one of them had a special certificate of authenticity saying that, yes, this is the real deal. And then we actually included we had someone actually print on Lego pieces our BMR logo and the NMRA Train Show logo.
I'm kind of mad
that went on the caboose.
I'm kind of mad that you didn't come up and introduce yourself in Kansas City. I would have gone.
I wanted to, but I didn't actually. I guess we were just in two different places all the time, but I never actually saw you and was able to introduce myself.
I saw you several times, and every time you saw me, you took off.
Just looking on your Facebook page, your premium kits, I see they're boxed, and that's just a box that contains the instructions and trucks and stuff like that, and I assume is also suitable for storing the finished model?
The finished model can't be... No, they're not. The boxes are not big enough to store the finished model in. I've actually had one or two people ask about that, but
I think people need to figure out their own way to store their model. Okay, the next picture I'm looking at from your Facebook page has all kinds of Brick Model Railroader, like the reading cars on it, and the tank car, and the Wide Vision Caboose. So are those the premium instruction booklets? Is that what you got displayed there?
Yeah.
Or as Tom Jake would say, Reading.
Reading.
Yes, yeah. Reading.
You might be looking at the decals.
Yeah, exactly.
So for each of our premium instruction kits we sell the instructions for the basic model, and then we sell the decals separate. So if you wanted to do, that way you can buy the instruction kit and you'll have the instructions to build the model, and then you can choose from there. Okay, I want to make a Reading car out of this. So you get the pieces in the right color for that, or you want to build the Boston and Maine car, so you get the right colors for that, and then we sell the decals for those corresponding cars as well.
So I see.
So the premium instructions include the what colors to buy for any option that may be available, and then you source those parts, and then you can order the decal separately.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You know what we're going to do this winter, eh, Bruce?
Build some Lego cars.
while we're watching the Leaf game.
Leaf games or the 500 or something like that.
Yeah, there you go. I'm dying to build one of these box cars.
I'm looking at that caboose. That is a sweet looking thing.
Yeah.
The NMRA caboose, the one we did.
On your store you got the wide vision one as well.
Yeah, yeah. The wide vision was the one we did for the NMRA. Yeah. And then we did another caboose just this year, which was the Northeastern style caboose.
Right. Yeah.
I'm very disappointed that you. I think Bruce Kelly's also very disappointed that the boxcar's out of stock.
I'm thinking he should get ready for a big run coming.
It will not be out of stock forever.
You've even got track plan here, the Western Maryland Hanover Subdivision Engine Terminal. Wow. And
when you look at those pictures of the layouts, they use the Lego plates in different colors for ballast, which is really amazing.
The Lego plates.
There's thin plates. I don't know what they call them, but they are
plates.
Plates. They're really thin, and they put them down on the Lego table, I guess you'd call it, or the pad, and then the sheet. And then you put those down to look like ballast, and then you put the track on top of that, which is really cool.
What about this? I want a picture on your. This we'll get to the end here now. On your Facebook page, it's Ma and Pa number 43 by Cale Leapart. What is that? MOC number 27174. What is that?
That's a locomotive that I built just this year. It's based on the Maryland and Pennsylvania Railroads 280 consolidation number 43.
Right. And what is MOC? MOC number 27174.
MOC? MOC or MOC as we call it. That's a term that kind of that the Lego community has kind of come up with to call their models. It stands for my own creation.
Okay.
I personally I don't like the term mock. I prefer model, but most a lot of the Lego community as a whole is kind of like kind of accepted mock as the term they use for describing a model. That was at Brickworld this year. That display card is given. When you register, you can register your models, and by doing so, you can actually participate in your mock can be then nominated for an award or something. So that number they give. That number is just the number that Brickworld gave to that model. It was, I assume that was just like that was the next number in sequence.
Right. So it was just a number that's particular to that show, not to anything in the Lego world.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just particular to that show.
It's like your entry number.
Okay.
Exactly.
And
your entry number.
And they had 27,000 entries. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, boys. I think we're coming to the end there. Do we have any more questions?
Oh, man.
You got 1,000 more questions.
Well, here's a question I have. Does anybody take their show layouts home and set them up and actually operate on them? Or do you actually have operating sessions where you're switching stuff, or just like running trains to keep the public entertained?
I myself don't have any home layout right now. Basically our club layout is my layout. It's my playground. But there are builders who have their own layouts at home. Some of them do a little bit of operation. I don't think anyone has gotten the really serious operation, like with the time cards and
Yeah.
and waybills and that sort of stuff in Lego. I could be wrong, but I'm sure someone probably has.
Somebody probably.
But there are guys who do a little more operations, and usually when we're at a convention, we're usually just running the trains for the public and
sure
and that. But we sometimes when it's a little like at a local train show, when maybe it's a little more casual, we'll actually do some switching around in our yard. Making up and breaking down trains, and we'll drop cars off on sidings, going around the layout, and do a little bit of operation there. Nothing terribly serious, just kind of like for fun, just to do something.
Cool.
I would like to get a little bit more into operation, and hopefully once we've going back to that like Fremo modular standard for Lego that we talked about. Hopefully, as that develops, we can kind of like do more of that with that.
That'd
sidings and layouts, and
that'd be spectacular.
Can actually
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That was rude. It makes me a bad interviewer, but that would be really cool to have standards where people that don't necessarily belong to clubs feel like they could come to a show and join into a layout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hopefully as we grow more as a hobby, we'll be getting into more of that. I know there's definitely a bunch of us out there who want to do that and do more than just run our trains in circles.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right, boys. I think we're gonna call it a day here. But boy, oh boy, this has certainly been well worth the trouble.
Absolutely amazing stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Bruce. Bruce.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson. Seeing as how it's been such a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Can you give out our email address?
I can. Would you like me to?
I would very much like you to, because we've come to the end of our festivities.
Oh, yes, that's right. So this is where we usually give out the email address.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Our email address, if you want to send us an email, which apparently may no longer be a fad, our email address is modlerslife, modelers with one L, modlerslife@gmail.com.
Yeah.
I'm gonna Superfan's gonna step in here. Should have said Modeler's Life. That's one L, like Lego, not two L's like Railroad.
Ooh.
Nice.
That would have been.
Well, while you boys have been away, it's been becoming more and more like that's one L like Railroad, not two L's like Cadillac.
Oh,
I missed that one. Yeah,
that's a little TC influence there.
Yeah, it's a little Tony Cook, our buddy Tony Cook. We might as well mention it. I love this car. He literally bought himself. When I saw it, I just about fell over. I'm standing there drooling. Eventually, he let me drive it. But it
Did
was
he?
like, oh yeah.
Yeah, bet you that steering wheel was all sticky.
Oh my!
Was it as much fun as Lexus Vet?
Different.
Different fun.
Yeah, at no point did Tony say to me, well, why don't you try to get it up to 100 miles an hour?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a website. That's not that I ever would drive a car at 100 miles an hour, because I always tell everybody that I observe the posted speed limits. So Cale, this has been really, really cool. I'm glad we talked to you. We have a website, amodelerslife.com. So if you go there, you're going to find all kinds of links and information about our little shindig here. And Cale, at the very end of this podcast, there's something really important you have to say. And that's how we finish. At the appropriate moment, you're going to say, "Happy Rails to you."
Okay.
All right. Have you got that? You want to write it down? You want to take a moment to rehearse?
I think I'll remember.
Okay.
Happy Rails to you.
All right.
Are you ready, Bruce?
I'm game.
Okay. Well, Cale, as the sun slowly sets over the back 40 and we close the big barn doors, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
Happy rails to you.
It's another Lincoln Homer.